G'day, this is first in my series of homebrew confessions. Let's talk about yeast rehydration. I'll just quickly go through a basic way of how you can do it. There is many different ways, but here's one of the oldest, most basic ways I was taught many years ago. As I said, it's a very simple process. You want everything to be nice and clean, sanitized even. That's some pre-boiled water. I boiled in the household kettle. I had that covered, that glass, and I let it come down. You'll find most yeasts will say somewhere between 25 and 30 degrees. The old days used to be always at least 30, but they keep changing things. That one's 31. That'll be fine for me. So once you're sure of that, you simply add your yeast. Now these instructions tend to differ slightly for each yeast. Some say we'll add it and don't stir. Some say we'll add it and stir. Now I'm going to go the old school method. This is the old school method. There's no sugar or anything in there. You simply cover that with some Glad wrap. And leave that for half an hour. Alright, so it's been nearly half an hour. So what they used to say was open it up, give it a stir. Some would say leave that another 5 minutes or 10 minutes before pitching. I've read somewhere that some of the instructions used to say bring it down a couple of degrees, you know, every 5 minutes, but don't leave it out more than an hour before you pitch it and things like that. Anyway, that's how you can rehydrate yeast. There's a million different ways. As I said before, read your yeast instructions. Make sure they're current yeast instructions. Some people will say add sugar to this mix before you add the yeast. Some will say stir as soon as you add the yeast. Leave it, stir again, leave it. There's a million different ways, but basically that's it. Sometimes it'll get a little bit foamy, sometimes it won't. But that is what they call rehydrating yeast, and that's, yeah, they usually call it cream. That's it there. Okay, so that's how you do it. Now, what my confession is that I don't rehydrate yeast. Most of the time. 99% of the time I don't rehydrate yeast. I mostly use Safale yeast, and a lot of people may have heard of the study they did a couple of years ago, and a lot of people have been saying how you don't have to oxygenate the wort, and it's not as important as it used to be. And this is true. Now, I tried rehydration probably 2 or 3 times way back when, in the late 90s, when I first heard about it, and it didn't really do anything for me. People were saying I should rehydrate. More recently, when I started doing YouTube videos, probably 10 years ago, I tried it once, and I don't know what went wrong. You know, I did it right, and it just didn't work. Ended up pitching up more yeast. That should have been a good yeast packet. This yeast I ended up pitching the second time was out of the same batch of yeast. And then I tried it again, and I just didn't see any improvement. Just recently, in the latest edition of Brew Your Own magazine, great magazine by the way, there was an article in the magazine about how to treat yeast and how to rehydrate it. At the same time, Safale had put the results of their study they did, the complete or nearly complete results of the study they did about where people started getting that you didn't have to hydrate your wort. And it was very, very interesting. Now, we are talking about Safale. That's mainly what I use anyway. It's usually USO 5, USO 4, 3470 or whatever it is, the lager yeast. That's just off the top of my head. But I'll just go through some of the details. I will be reading some of this if you look down, just so I get the facts right. I'm going to be reading the facts out of their article. Now, they did a test with every one of their yeasts. They used tap water, distilled water, 7 Plato wort, 15 Plato wort, and 25 Plato wort. So it was a big wide range. They did some at 8 Celsius, which is 46 F, 12 Celsius, which is 54 F, 16 Celsius, which is 61 F, 20 Celsius, which is 68 F, 23 Celsius, which is 90 F, 40 Celsius, and that's 104 F. They did one without mixing, one with mixing and one with really violent mixing, like a big shaking up apparently. And they compared all these to the direct pitching of yeast into a wort. After all that, and they tried all their yeast types, the lagers, everything, there was no significant differences found in the resulting beer, the fermented beer. I really liked it when I read that, because that's the way I found it. I mean, I haven't pushed the boundaries as much as they did, but from my fermenting and my experience, a long time brewing, that's exactly what I found. Just to read it, so I get it right, the study concluded that the performance of the brewing yeast is not affected when they are rehydrated in different types of media, at different speeds of agitation and in a wide range of temperatures. Furthermore, it is not affected when they are inoculated directly into the wort without previous hydration. They also go on to say, if you still want to hydrate, you can, but do so preferably with hopped wort. That will protect the yeast against microbial contamination. And last but not least, there's no need to oxygenate the wort when using yeast by Fermentis. They call it E2U these days, easy to use, I'm pretty sure that stands for. So there you go. My confession is I don't. I was prepared to cop a lot of flack for that. This was going to be the first confession anyway, and then I got to read that study, the results of that study, and you know, that proves that what I'm doing isn't harming anything. Now, they also go on to say later in the study, if you want to do it, rehydrate it, continue to do it. You know, if it makes you happy and you're getting the results you want, continue to do it. But if you happen to be in a bind and you don't have time, or you've forgotten, or your wort's not cooling down enough to pitch the yeast for your starter or rehydration, there's really no problem with going in a wide range of temperatures. You shouldn't find much of a difference. Now, of course, things can be different for different yeasts. They all have different manufacturing techniques, and you'll read different things. As I think I mentioned earlier when I was making the video, when you do a search on Google, you can find information from all different times, and some of it mightn't have been updated for 10 years. You don't know what you're reading. So it's really good to try and get onto the actual yeast manufacturer's site and have a look yourself. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you get on Safale's site, you'll probably find some old information that tells you not to do some of these things. But there you go. If you want to do a rehydration of yeast, you're better off doing it in hopped wort, which is something they always told you not to do. And main thing of all, keep everything clean and sanitized, sterile as you can. All right, thanks for that. Like, subscribe, share, check out the Patreon. Thanks for watching. Cheers. I should have went, cheers. This is the Nut Brown Ale. Anyway, there'll be a few more of these coming up over the next few months. I think I've got a lot of confessions to make. I've got broad shoulders. I'm prepared to cop the flack from people. But sometimes, you know, change is better than a holiday. Cheers.